Coronation Street's Dee-Dee Bailey is set to embark on a powerful legal battle next week after enduring a harrowing experience during the birth of her daughter. As both mother and child fight for survival in hospital, Dee-Dee is diagnosed with pre-eclampsia, a life-threatening condition that puts them in grave danger. The gripping storyline unfolds in Monday's episode, as Dee-Dee goes into labor and is overwhelmed by excruciating pain. Despite her distress, her concerns are downplayed, and she is discharged from the hospital without receiving adequate care. Back at home, Dee-Dee's condition takes a dramatic turn when her waters break. Rushed back to the hospital, she faces further delays in receiving medical attention. As her situation grows increasingly critical, doctors are finally forced to perform an emergency delivery. However, the ordeal doesn't end there. Dee-Dee suffers a severe hemorrhage, leading to the heartbreaking decision to undergo a hysterectomy. As she processes the traumatic experience, she begins to question whether the inadequate care she received was influenced by racial bias in maternity treatment. A report released in October last year highlighted the stark disparities in maternal health care, revealing that Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth compared to their white counterparts. Additionally, a 2021-2022 inquiry by Birthrights shed light on systemic racial injustices within maternity services. Chanique Sterling Brown, who portrays Dee-Dee, recently opened up about the significance of the storyline. She emphasized that the narrative aims to reflect real-life issues, portraying a scenario where overstretched hospital resources contribute to a lack of proper care. While there is no intentional malice in how Dee-Dee is treated, the assumptions made about her condition result in her voice being overlooked. The actress also noted that Dee-Dee herself may be in a state of emotional denial, unprepared for the reality of childbirth. As a result, her pain is not taken seriously, leading her to a perilous situation that forces her to confront deeply troubling questions about medical bias and maternal health inequalities.
What happens when the doctor finally gets involved? Dee-Dee gets diagnosed with pre-eclampsia, which is really interesting. I really looked into it, because I hadn't heard about it before we started filming this storyline. The condition can rapidly deteriorate and it can be potentially fatal to the mother and baby. As a result of these complications, Dee-Dee has to undergo an emergency hysterectomy. By this point, she's agreed to give up her baby to her brother James. But how does she feel about that now? Dee-Dee knows that and she feels it would be really unfair and unkind to the baby to keep her. For that reason it's like she would be a safety baby, so to speak. I think that's how Dee-Dee is looking at it. Also, I don't think Dee-Dee wants to break her brother's heart at this point either. James is 100% sold on becoming a parent and she was behind it. She'd come to that decision. So I really feel like she is trying to put her logical brain before her emotional brain. You never know how you could feel in the future, but she's trying to do what feels like the right thing in the moment. James leaves for America, so Dee-Dee is faced with having to go home and the baby being there. How will she cope with that? I don't think she will. It'll be really interesting. You're going to see that turmoil for Dee-Dee. She's torn and completely broken again. We thought it couldn't get any worse for her, but it does. Dee-Dee is running on empty and is then faced with having to look at her own child. She really thought that she'd done the right thing and she wouldn't be immediately confronted with the baby. But now she is. It really is a huge thing for her to wrap her head around. I think she is going to struggle with that. Later, Dee-Dee tells Alia and Sarah that she wants to pursue a case for gross negligence against the hospital. How did you feel about Corey exploring this issue? It's a story that's been floated to me a couple of times over the last few years. But it was finding the right circumstances to play it in. I think it's just really important to spark conversations. I was talking to one of the producers at Corey about it. Probably last year, just in passing. I remember saying, if Beyoncé and Serena Williams are 2 of the richest, most famous Black women in the world and they had terrible birthing experiences, that's such a bigger problem. That's not just some malicious person that is inherently racist. It's a huge, systemic issue and unless we're talking about it, there's no way to fix it. We were talking about some of the stats and how the gap is closing between black women's mortality rates and white women's mortality rates, but it's not because black women are being treated better. It's because white women are dying at higher rates too. So what is it about maternity care in the UK at the minute that is literally costing mothers their lives? It's a huge issue and it affects us all, it just adversely affects some of us more. So to be talking about it is beneficial in a lot of ways. What research have you done? We've worked with some brilliant organizations and charities. We worked with Birthrights, the Motivational Mums Club and 5x more. They were really great at advising on this story. I got to speak to a woman who had a real lived experience of this, and her story is not dissimilar to what happens to Dee-Dee. So it was just finding the truth in that as well. Hopefully Dee-Dee as a character has been really well received by the public. It's like she's your mate. We wanted to tell the story like, imagine this was happening to your friend. And then explore how you go on the journey and process that. It was really great to hear some lived experiences, but also really emotional. Some of the conversations have been really hard, but really helpful to hear what some women went through.
Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more movie spoilers next week. Goodbye and see you again.